It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, December 5th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. And that is still buzzing from that overtime. Woo!
Yeah, it was an interesting game. It really was.
Yeah, we will get into it and celebrate one Sean Couturier all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology, reporting to us from the Wells Fargo Center. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Louis Belpedio was put on waivers. That feels like eons ago at this point, but should be mentioned. In the meantime, same lineup as Saturday's win over the Pens in the shootout, and we got another game with extra hockey, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very similar game for, I would say, at least half of it. It was almost identical. Yeah,
Maybe at different portions of the game, because I think the first period was a little more exciting than the other one.
I don't know, maybe. But there were times when both teams had some dominant stretches, and yeah, they're just right now they're pretty evenly matched when they're playing, and you know, Jelkovic was certainly not yielding anything that you would be worried about on from the backup goalie perspective. So yeah, I mean, I think you look at it and you say, all right, you came out with 2 points. That's good. I'm sure even Pittsburgh looks at it and says, all right, at least we got a point. But it's good all around for the Flyers.
Yeah, I would say so. Obviously, Carter Hart had an excellent game as well for the Flyers. I think he made a lot of close-up stops that I think maybe would have made anyone nervous. But Carter Hart seemed.
He did have one bad flub behind the net that almost cost him. So there was that. But
so did Nedeljkovic. So I think they evened out on that one.
Yep.
But overall, they made the stops that counted. And then I think obviously, one of the biggest continuing stories with the Flyers, but was evident again, is the penalty kill. I mean, the Flyers outshot the Pens on the Pens power plays in this game.
I mean, if you really want to get down to it, and this is where it kind of gets weird with the Flyers, like they're more aggressive goal scoring wise on the penalty kill than they are 5-on-5 sometimes, which is, you can't explain it, but it's just one of those weird things with the team right now.
Yeah, it can seem like that sometimes. I think, the opportunities are better on the penalty kill because you're taking the other team by surprise, right? So you're getting breakaway opportunities, you're getting a 2-on-1. And so I think it looks flashier than on 5-on-5. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. But I do think that they could use some of that energy and creativity at 5-on-5. I think that point stands. And I know there's a couple of guys on the Flyers at least who are wishing a couple of those went in. Travis Konechny is one of them. We talked about Cam Atkinson maybe getting one on the board, and he was so close this time, and so
very close. Tippett, his usual. He did get a couple on net that were good. There were 2 or 3 off the net, so he probably wanted one when he was down low. Yeah, I mean, there were chances.
Yeah, I do also want to talk about Tyson Foerster's goal because we talked specifically about Tyson Forester and if, he was on a roll. Could we say that yet? I think, I would say so at this point. And we talked about something very specific, and you mentioned, Russ, about the fact that he had switched from doing the one-timers to the
Yeah.
wrist shots,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what he did on his goal
Yeah.
this time. It
Yeah.
was magic. You predicted it perfectly.
Well, I mean, I went back and I just looked at, and I wrote this on sportsology.com, but I went back and looked at what he would do in juniors, and he was using the wrist shot. All my markings were like wrist shot, wrist shot, wrist shot, maybe the best wrist shot. And he kind of got away from that, I think, for a while with the Flyers. And now the wrist shot, when you're at the NHL level, it goes off the stick much quicker. So I think he's now figured that out. And, now he'll move in and take the wrist shot too, which he did, and get even closer. So I think because, the closer he gets, the faster that thing's going to look. So, yeah, it's really good on his part. Right now he is on a roll, and he really, right now he is feeling it, and he's definitely got that extra jump that we've been looking for him to have really for a month.
Yeah, exactly, and you could even see it in the replay where he could have chosen a one-timer there. The puck
Absolutely
was
could have.
Yeah, the puck was placed perfectly for that, but no, he took an extra second and resettled the puck and used the wrist shot. So I thought, it was definitely a deliberate choice there.
Yeah, no question, it's a choice, and I think that's experience, right? I mean, you got to shoot what's going in, and that is his best shot. So I think it's good. Whoever told him that, or if he figured that out, good for him.
Yeah, I do wanna talk about, some of the missed opportunities because there were, uh, no question there. I think they're just struggling at 5 on 5, to your point, with some decision-making issues where, they get the 3 on 2, they get the 2 on 1, and they don't have whatever they're gonna do in mind, and then they get too close to the goaltender, and it's a bad angle shot, or they don't get the pass off on time and it's intercepted. Like, they just need to know what they're doing better ahead of the rush.
Yeah, I mean, I could think of two moments in my head. Brink set up Tippett that way once, and Tippett really had a bad angle on the side of the net, and Jelkovic was kind of already there. And then also Frost set up Tippett that way, and it just didn't, he was already, because he is fast. Sometimes he doesn't know how to sort of slow it down or put on the brakes while he's getting that pass. And the closer you get to the goalie, the less chance you're going to have of making that shot most of the time. So I do think there was some of that. But even connecting, like you talked about, when he
Yeah.
when he had that breakaway, he needed to make that extra move, and he just got the puck off his stick quick. And the puck off his stick quick wasn't a hard shot for Nedeljkovic to stop. Had he made one move, I think he would have had an easier goal. But it just didn't happen. So sometimes that is just the extra little thought. But easy for us to say on the sideline.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I just think that, and it wasn't just them. I feel like, almost everybody had a moment like that I
Yeah.
noticed during the game. And I just think it's not like a huge glaring issue. It's just something that they need to button up a little bit, and more pucks will go in the net at that point.
Yeah, there's no question they have an opportunity to get a lot more pucks in the net. They also got away with a few things too. I mean, the one with Travis Sanheim they didn't get away with. They do have to watch him just, pinching all out 100%. I know
Right.
people were blaming Farabee for that goal. Farabee was the last line of defense. York was already back. Like, he was the last guy. If they got to pass Farabee, which they did, you could see that it was going to be at least a 2-on-1. So you kind of have to, watch that. And honestly, even though it's hard to find someone who had a bad game in this game, Nick Seeler had a bad game. He was he had turned over the puck a few times, like passing it to somebody in the neutral zone, which is a bad spot. Also, just like blindly throwing it in the Penguin zone, and we get picked up right away. Like, I just didn't feel like he was even in tune in this game.
Yeah, I feel like that was part of the overall decision-making problem, where he didn't have, like, a next step clearly in mind before trying to figure out what to do next, and then it turns into a turnover at that point. And I feel like that was partially indicative of what was happening across the board to a small degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ristolainen looks healthy enough now. You can move him off the third pairing. I don't know why they don't.
Yeah. We'll see what they decide to do there. We'll also be paying attention for this road trip on if they decide to call anybody up from Lehigh Valley. The Phantoms had a challenging weekend, let's say, this past week, and we're going to dig into our prospects down there coming up next.
When you draft on your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed's the hiring platform where you could attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to US Indeed data. As soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your business job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application. Pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
We will be answering your mailbag questions on tomorrow's show, so get them in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on the app formerly known as Twitter, or comment over on our YouTube channel. We are going to be talking Phantoms, but while are in the prospect state of mind, Cutter Gauthier was named to the USA Hockey preliminary roster for World Juniors this year. The only Flyers prospect on that list this time around. Interesting also is Zeev Bayum, who we talked about on our prospect profile last week. So looking forward to seeing more of him as well.
Yeah, I'm happy for Zeev. I just spoke to him, and he's a great kid. And Cutter, I expected to make the team. Expect to, be first or second liner. So all depending. I know. Don't fans might go, how he's not? How come he might not be on the first line? Well, because you have to play this like a team. It's sometimes about who you match up with, not about your own ability. So you have to, when you go to this team, you have to play a role.
Yep, and he knows that for sure and will do
Oh, yeah.
whatever is asked of him. Turning our attention to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, not a quality weekend for them. 3 losses, 2 regular losses, 1 overtime loss. With those losses, the Phantoms have now dropped in standings back down to 7th in the division by points percentage. It's not good for them from a
No.
standings perspective. It's not good for them from a momentum perspective. Like over the last 2 weeks, they've been playing really, really well. And so to have this kind of drop on this road trip weekend was not great overall. But there were some bright spots that we can take a look at for sure. We talked last week about some nonsense and getting into too many scraps and the Phantoms take too many penalties. I think that that is still the case. Although I would say that Hartford is part of the problem and not the solution for the Phantoms here. They are just a wrecking ball kind of team, and
Yeah.
Phantoms played right into their hands. And when you play them twice in a weekend, um, and you kind of get sucked into their style of play, I think that was a huge part of the problem here.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Brennan Othman. They have guys who could do that, could slug, but also score.
Yeah.
Sure, but I mean, at some point, you got to be smarter than that too, and that's part of coaching, and that's part of reminding your team not to get in the gutter, and that's part of reminding your team we need the points, those kinds of things.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson was actually suspended from the nonsense from
Imagine
last
if he
week.
wasn't.
Yeah, right, for 1 game, but then he checked back into the lineup on Saturday, and, yeah, again, at that point, we're in game 2 of the back-to-back
Yeah,
against Hartford, and it was not great overall. The other thing that was not great overall is that Tanner Laczynski, who we've been talking about as a prime candidate for a call-up, I am very doubtful that he will be the one to get a call up should the Flyers decide to take somebody out west, just because he's a little banged up to the point where he had gotten slashed on the wrists, and he just wasn't taking faceoffs all weekend pretty much. And so that leads me to believe that despite the fact that he was still in the game, and I don't think he was necessarily playing badly, he just can't, rock up to the faceoff dot, and that's a huge part of what he would have to do if he was called up for fourth line center.
Yeah, no question. I that's a tough break for him. But yeah, I agree with your line of thinking.
Yeah, so I think that if there's a call up, it's most likely gonna be Lixell or Tuamala. But again, I don't even know if they're gonna call up anybody at this point. So I think it's a wait and see game on what they decide
I'm
to
gonna
do.
lean towards nobody because it's been nobody. But if they do somebody, I'm gonna actually go off the board here and lean towards Desnoyers because he scored a goal and Torts knows him and had him up for a certain amount of games. I think he would call him up before he would call up Tuamala. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just reading the tea
Yeah.
leaves for the coach.
Yeah, he did score a flashy breakaway goal in Sunday's game against
Yeah.
Providence. It did tie the game back up and was a remarkable goal. And I would say he's been playing a little better overall recently than he was earlier in the season. Also don't think he's ready. I think he needs a
Hmm.
real banger of a stretch in order to stay consistent enough for the call up. But I don't doubt that what you just said is a possibility given what we know. I think that the other thing to take away from this weekend is that at least the last two games, the Phantoms had a lead, lost it, then fell behind, came back to tie it up, but then still lost the game. And so we kind of saw like both sides of the Phantoms here, where they can have like amazing stretches of play. I would say, the first period of the second game against Hartford, they were tremendously strong. They scored two goals. They were playing well defensively. And then, like, just a couple of bad luck things happen. All of a sudden, the game is 2-2. And I don't think, between that and the physicality of Hartford, I just don't think they got it back together enough to get over that hump, which is something you need to be able to do to move up
Yeah,
in the
that's a big
standings.
mental hurdle that you need to be able to do, and sometimes you have to ride those wave of emotions. Uh, I just, as we talked about, we knew the Hartford stuff would be tough. They have a good goalie in Dylan Garand, who, again, when you're trying to like make the complete comeback on, a lot of times you are going to come up short because even if he gives up some, he's probably going to stop you when you need to, and that's what happened in their second game. And so you look at that and you say, all right, they have to sort of now, they're now in a position, and I'm not comparing, but like the Edmonton Oilers, they have to now decide, do we keep this top line as the top line, or do we try and make at least a couple of lines here? Because we got a couple other guys on other lines who are producing, this top line's producing, but we can't be a one line team.
Right, and that's where I think, Lappy has some interesting questions to answer, right? Because that top line, again, that had been killing it over the past 3 weeks or so, didn't really come up big. Now, again, part of it is Tanner Laczynski isn't in his top physical form, so I can see that as being part of it. I really think that Sam Tuamala still played very strong, and I think Lixell did as best as he could in the faceoff circle, which is not like a normal
No, that's
thing
not a
for
sports
him.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, they certainly had their moments, but now there's some other guys who are starting to pick it up. There were definitely some, like, career AHLer kinda guys who scored this weekend. Bellerive got his
Yeah.
first goal. Garrett Wilson scored a goal that was a tip off a great Ronnie Attard shot. But, like, I think that this line now, like, just didn't step it up and dominate in the way
Right.
that they had in this last several weeks. So it is a question of what you do. Do you break them up, or do you try and sprinkle them with some of the other guys who are now starting to show a little bit more signs?
Yeah, I break them up. I have to break them up because I rode that for a while. I now have to try and get hot again. and I don't think you're going to get hot again by trying to get that, especially with the injury, trying to rely on that line to get hot again. So I've got to try and ignite a couple of lines.
Yeah, so I want to talk more about Elliot Desnoyers and a couple other guys that could be candidates to move around and see what happens. We will do that coming up next. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They've got killer deals on last minute tickets, and with their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about those last minute tickets and flash deals. Plus, you can get that all important view from your seat. They've got deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even sometimes up to an hour after it starts. Game Time is the place to find that last minute seat. Also, the tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you'll never have to dig through your email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with all the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league, including Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube to subscribe. Russ, one of the other guys I want to talk about here is JR Avon. And, we had real high hopes for him coming into the season. Of course, he started out injured, so that was not ideal, but he's starting to get more results. And I talked about him last week as having played a really strong weekend, even though he wasn't like all-star of the team in terms of points. Now things are starting to come into fruition a little bit. So overall, he's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 15 games played, 2 goals this weekend, including a power play goal on Sunday. And the Phantoms power play continues to be pretty strong overall. Not the 50% we got the past 2 weeks. That was not sustainable for sure. But they did score 3. I believe they were 3 for 12 for the weekend on the power play, which is, it's not amazing, but it's pretty solid. So I would say that like JR Avon is one of those guys that I might consider mixing up some of those top line guys with.
Yeah, I mean, put him on the second line. I mean, he produces. I think now that he's healthy, I mean, he's a 20-year-old, so there's going to be some moments, but the offense is there. He's got speed. I think that's one of those areas you could tap.
Yeah, I think so too. He's, I think somebody that has a lot of potential in the future and could be a part of this Flyers rebuild. And I would like to see them, invest a little bit more ice time on him. Talking a little bit more about Elliot Desnoyers, I think that because of maybe where he's been in the lineup, he hasn't had as much opportunity to make those kinds of plays that he usually likes to make. And one thing though that I've noticed about his game is that he's really just getting more confident in terms of just trying things, even though they don't necessarily succeed. And that maybe that's something that he can do at the AHL level that he wasn't able to do at the NHL level.
Right. He should be trying everything because that's something where, he's creative and he's got certain speed and he's got a decent shot. And he should be trying all those things a little older. So, compared to a guy like Avon. So, I would hope that that's the case. I would think that we were at a point now where he could score really no matter what line he's on, but he's not quite there.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely the case. And then, of course, there's always the curious case of Wade Allison and, what to do with him because he had a ton of shot attempts and scoring chances all weekend. He had a goal and an assist on Saturday. And I just think like he's so close, and just having him on a line with career AHLers is not helping him. It is
No,
not. And
I agree with that. I put him on the second line. I mean, he could definitely help a guy like Avon. I think that would be a good way to go because even though that's some upside there. That's some youth. Maybe that would spark him. I agree. If they keep playing him with the other guys, he's going to turn into the I score once in a while, Allison, but I'm going to play really hard and tough, and it's not going to really help down the line.
yeah. Yeah, that is for sure. I do want to talk about the defensemen a little bit that we haven't really gotten to yet. Man, Ronnie Attard is just like a dream. I enjoy watching him play so much. Even in that game on Saturday, which didn't go well for the team overall. Like I said, he had an amazing shot that was tipped in by Garrett Wilson, 2 assists in that game, a goal and 3 assists for the weekend. And again, that's not like, he's expected to be part of the offense, but to produce the way he is, I think has been really, really good for his game and his confidence. And he just like, he knows where to be in a way that I just think he really needs to get an NHL shot at some point pretty soon.
He's totally worthy of a call up. He's been worthy for a little while now, and there hasn't been a sniff. So, like with Belpedio getting sent down, you would think Adder could be on his way up, but is that a definite? No, they might use somebody else. They might use Mete. They might, who knows? But I would have Adder going the other way now,
I
especially
would
with,
too.
and I'll tell you the other reason. The other reason is they're using Ristolainen on the second power play, and that's fine because you're trying to, ease up on Sanheim's minutes, but Adder's better on the power play than Ristolainen. Like,
That's for sure. That is absolutely for sure.
yeah,
I also want to talk about Emil Andrae because, obviously it was disappointing for him to get sent down, but I really think he's at this point now where he's like making a game of it. And he is getting more aggressive. He's getting more confident, especially in those physical games against Hartford. He's
yeah,
just kind of like, I don't care. Come at me, bro.
yeah.
Like, I think
He's got some feistiness. That's what I've always liked that about him.
yeah, and I think that he just really has found his confidence in that area where I don't think he's afraid to make mistakes. And I know that's, part of what we talked about with him when he was at the Flyers level, and Tortorella liked that about him, that he could recover from mistakes easily. But I think that at the AHL level, he has an opportunity to fix them a little bit easier.
Right, no
Um,
question about
and
that.
yeah, so I think that he's just, allowing, like, that, to your point, feistiness element of his game to come out a little bit.
That's good. That's what I want to see. I mean, that's again, I still want him to be there pretty much for the whole year. I do.
Yeah, I think that would be just fine if that were the case. Just a brief mention of, Alexei Gendron, who had a great game last week, and, he hadn't been in the lineup a ton, prior to that, and so we were wondering if he was gonna get rewarded. He played 2 of the 3 games over the weekend, so that's good. In a 3-game weekend, when
Mhm.
you're kind of on the bubble here, to get 2 of the 3 games is pretty solid.
Nope, that's fine. I mean, again, he's another one. He's young. He's going to have some ups and downs, but
Yeah.
we're trying to get some goals, and he's a good guy to try and get goals from.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have 2 games coming up this weekend. On Friday, a rematch with Providence, who they just lost to on Sunday. And then the Checkers from Charlotte will be at the PPL Center on Saturday. That's the teddy bear toss game.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
always so fun. One of the 2 games in Hartford was their teddy bear toss game. So getting to see 2 of those 2 weekends in a row is always a good time. Although it's much more fun when it's the home team. But
Sure.
uh, hopefully we get a really good turnout for that one as well. So there's a ton of bears raining on the ice.
Yeah, that'll be nice. I mean, it's one of those things visually that's fun to watch on video.
All right, that'll do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow. We'll have our mailbag and so much more. As a reminder, we do want to hear from you. So send in those questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a fantastic day, everyone.